Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Today's episode is brought to you by Jen and Juice Coaching by yours truly. For the past 5 years, I've worked with over 100 people to help them feel, less stuck. Whether you're looking to change careers, start a side hustle, or just get a strategy for your life, head on over to jenglantz.com/coaching and you can find out about my 1-hour coaching specials that will help you feel like you can finally cross those things off your to-do list and start whatever kind of project, life change, or dream that you have. Hey, any youngers, it's me, your host, Jen Glantz. Welcome back to another episode of the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. Happy almost Valentine's Day. If you listened to last week's podcast, especially the intro, you heard a story of mine that happened on February 12th, 2016, when I went to a singles Valentine's Day party and the psychic pretty much told me I was never going to find love. And ever since that moment, you would think I would despise Valentine's Day. It would creep me out. Just the thought of it would make my skin crawl. But after that moment, I realized that regardless if I did find love, if I did find my person, that I was going to spend less time worrying about that on Valentine's Day and more time worrying about myself and how I feel about myself. And what I did back then and what I do now is I've transformed that holiday, that Hallmark holiday, to be a checkpoint in my life where I sit down and I really start to analyze how I'm feeling about me. Yes, I make it all about me because when during the year do we sit down and do we look at ourselves and say, hey, how are we feeling about us? We don't do that quite often. If you're like me, then you spend a lot of quality time during the year putting yourself down and saying limiting beliefs in your head or just telling yourself that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not whatever enough. So as we approach a holiday, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're in an unhappy relationship, whether you're single, whether you're anything, spend some time focusing on you and the love that you have for yourself, which I know sounds cheesy, and the love that's missing for yourself. Now, I think this year it's more important than ever to do because we're coming off of a year where we've spent a lot of quality time with ourselves. And for some of us, that's been scary because we can't remember the last time we've spent so much time just ourselves with four walls and maybe a TV and a couch. Like usually a lot of us who are unhappy with who we are or hiding something about who we are or just not feeling great about who we are, we hide that inside of being super busy. We hide that in over-programming our lives. We hide that in unhealthy habits, but usually unhealthy habits outside of the house. But now that we've been stuck, sitting and being alone for a very long time during this pandemic, a lot of those emotions have surfaced. And perhaps how you feel about yourself has changed for the good, maybe not for the not so good. But in today's episode, I want to talk about 4 ways that you can check in to see how you're feeling about yourself and 4 ways to figure out perhaps how you can learn to appreciate yourself again, how to learn to show up for yourself again, how to learn, simply put, how to trust yourself again. I go through phases where some days I feel really proud of myself. I feel like I love myself more than a lot of people in my life, which I know sounds weird to say, but you really should love yourself more than anybody else because you're stuck with yourself no matter what. You're your own hero. You're your own line of defense. You're your own everything. Whether or not you have a house surrounded with people and a big family and all these things, you're the team captain of you. And there are some times where I feel strong about that. There's some times where I feel good about that. There's some times where I look at the things that are about me that are quirky and weird and I feel awesome about that. I'm proud of that. I want the world to see that. But then I have some days where I feel pretty crummy about myself, where I find myself on Instagram looking at everybody else, wishing I was more like them and less like me, thinking, why couldn't I have their life? Why couldn't I look like that, sound like that, be like that, have all of that? I also have some days where I'm in front of people and I just feel so self-conscious about myself. I worry that they can see all of the acne on my face, and I wonder if they're judging how awkward I feel. And I'm guessing that a lot of the times maybe they don't like me because of who I secretly am that I'm working so hard to hide. I'm the kind of person who it's really hard to be my friend. It's really hard to get to know me because I put up so many walls. I wear so many masks when I first meet people because I think deep down inside, I'm so worried that people's opinion of me will not play out in my favor. I'm so worried that if people have read my books or listened to my podcast or known me from the internet for years, that when they meet me in person, they'll be so disappointed. And this stresses me out beyond belief that oftentimes I show up in situations or I find myself around people and I'm just working so hard to hide so many things that the person I present myself as is robotic, is boring, is stale, is anything but me. And it's hit me quite recently that I am a very hard person to get to know because I'm not the kind of person who likes to talk about myself, and I'm not the kind of person who will enter a crowd and want to talk about all the things I have going on. I'm the kind of person that worries too much internally about how I'm coming off. And I read a quote the other day that said, "You'll always feel alone if you never let anyone know who you truly are." And I feel that way. I feel that one of the reasons why sometimes it's hard for me to make close friends is because they don't know who they're being friends with. And that's something that I've tried to work on over the years. I am grateful for therapy to help me work on that. But it's definitely been a struggle for me. And that goes back to me not liking myself. That goes back to me not trusting myself. And when I have those days, I completely lose out on myself. So just like many of you, I have both kinds of days. Days when I'm so proud of who I am, days when I will go do my silly little Jen things, and days where I'm just working overtime to hide everything because I'm so worried about how other people will perceive me and I don't want to disappoint. So if you're sitting here and you're wondering, how in the world do you fall back in love with yourself? How in the world do you learn to trust yourself again? How in the world do you learn to like yourself again? Because the truth is, and I've learned this the hard and dirty way, is that nobody can really like you. Nobody can fall madly in love with you until you are so certain, so clear, and so proud of who you are. So step number 1 might sound simple, but for a lot of us, we don't know. We don't know how to do this. And that's simply understanding ourselves. Who are you? Now, I ask you that question, and you might respond with a bunch of job titles, with a bunch of life titles, but sit with it. Who in the world are you? Aside from what you do for a living, aside from who you are to other people, who are you? What do you care about? What lights you up? What are you passionate about? What drives you? What are you obsessed with? Write those answers down. What are you good at? What are you not so good at? What could you improve on? What makes you so intensely unique? And I want you to replay all of those questions I just said, and I want you to write down your answers. And I want you to know that this is something that you should know about yourself fiercely, but you should also add to this list over time. You know, with a list like that, you're not going to immediately know how to answer all of these questions, but it should be something that you add on to, that you revisit quite often. Because if you want other people to understand you and to know you and to relate to you and get close to you, you first have to go through those steps of figuring yourself out. Now, number 2, and this is a great exercise if you want to find more passion within yourself, meaning light that fire again, feel alive. Do something to challenge yourself. You know, when we find ourselves in challenges where we're working hard to do something or we're working hard to stop doing something, not only do we learn a lot about ourselves, but we feel alive again. We feel powerful. So maybe a challenge is that every day this week for 20 minutes a day, you go for a walk, or every day this week you call somebody that you haven't spoken to in a while, or every day this week you cook a scary recipe from the cookbook. A challenge that is going to reward you, but also is going to push you out of your comfort zone. Because the more you push yourself out of the comfort zone, the more you learn about yourself, but the more you learn to appreciate yourself and all you're capable of. It reminds you of your inner strength, which I think strength and trust equate to personal love. Number 3, and I know we've been doing a lot of this, but sit still with yourself more often. This is the number one thing I struggle with. Like, I understand myself, I challenge myself all of the time, but ask me to sit still with myself and I will do everything to break that up. I was the kind of person who completely overprogrammed my life, who completely just made everything chaotic constantly before the pandemic so that I didn't have to sit still with myself in my life. And by this, I don't mean sit on the couch and watch Netflix. I mean sit still with yourself and just think. Because for a lot of us, that's very scary. For a lot of us, we're scared of what our thoughts will be. For a lot of us, the thought of just being still and being alone freaks us out. One of the things I've started to do personally to sit still with myself is that every night before bed, I put my phone away at a certain time, and I reserve about 15 to 20 minutes where I just sit up in bed, close my eyes, I don't sleep, and I just sit still with myself. I process, I think. I sometimes write things down that come up in my head or unresolved conflicts. I put all of that down. But allowing myself to sit still allows me to process and allows me to start to understand where I'm at, how I feel, and what I need more of or less of. Now, of course, you can meditate. Of course, you can do all those things. Those things are not something that I do. I'm not saying they're not great. They're awesome. But for me, I'm not there yet. I'm not at the meditation level yet. I'm at this level. So think about yourself and what you can do to spend quality silent time with you and your thoughts. Don't be scared of your thoughts. Process your thoughts. Understand your thoughts. Do something with your thoughts. And finally, own up to yourself. Who are you? What are you scared of? What scares you? What do you want? What are you afraid to confess that you want? Own up to it all, because sometimes people can see and understand something about you that you're not sharing with them because of your facial expressions or your body language. And sometimes people might not be able to help you or know you because you haven't shared these things about you. So own up to yourself, whether it's your fears, whether it's your goals, or whether it's just the things about you that might be hard to be around sometimes. I have known for my whole life, I've been this way. I am the most stubborn person in the world. I'm so stubborn that I'm telling you right now, there's nobody more stubborn than me because I could not possibly accept that or believe that. So my whole life, I have known, I've been told, and I know it to be true, that I am so incredibly stubborn. And because of this, it can be super hard to be around me. So anybody who gets to be my friend, anyone who really enters like the inner depths of my life will start to be frustrated because I'm so stubborn that it can halt our plans. It can make things more complicated. But I have to own up to that. And I have to know that. Even if people around me are going to know it, doesn't mean I have to change it. I'm too stubborn to change it, but it means I have to own up to it. So what do you have to own up to about yourself? Not dislike about yourself, not be annoyed about yourself, but what do you have to own up to about yourself? Maybe you are a person, and I'm also this person who's overly emotional. That's me. But I own up to it. And I'm actually a little bit proud of that. Maybe you're a person who's completely indecisive. Maybe you're a person who takes a long time to process things. These are not things to be annoyed about with yourself or eager to change. These are just things to own up to. These are things, if you are self-conscious about them, that you can tell people, hey, look, it takes me a little bit longer to make a decision, but here's what I might need help with. So owning up to yourself allows you to trust yourself and like yourself. So if you're following along, spend some time this Valentine's Day holiday eating your heart out with all of the chocolate, all of the candy, all of the sweet treats, but take inventory on yourself so you can fall in love with you again. Start off by figuring out how to understand yourself better. Then think about a challenge you can do to challenge yourself, to reinvigorate how you feel and let yourself understand your personal strength. Spend more time sitting still with yourself so that you can really start to process what it is you're feeling, what it is you're thinking, and own up to who you are. This lets you create boundaries, but this also lets you not feel like you have to hide things about you. And look, this is a process. This isn't going to happen in one day. But maybe you use a holiday like Valentine's Day, or maybe you use a checkpoint in the middle of May to do this. Because the more you start to really appreciate who you are, the more you can approach opportunities in a way that almost guarantees you success because you are showing up, you are owning up, you are trusting yourself. And here's the other thing. There's going to be times where you lose this love, where you are upset with yourself, where you are on Instagram for far too long that you doubt everything about you. And I ask in those moments, refer back to all of the work that you've done with these challenges, but also all the work you've done in your life to get to where you are. Stop comparing and contrasting, and instead, look deep inside, figure out what it is about you that is unique, and hold onto it. Have the biggest romance with it. Love it more than you love anything, anyone else. All my love, Jen Glantz. Hey you! Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.